Hey, sunshines, it's story time. Before I go to bed, I want to talk to you guys about manipulation. My name is Sharinda Pringle, author of The Journey of Rediscovering Me. I help people who have had traumatic events to face fear and to live their best life. I want to talk to you today about manipulation. What is manipulation? After today's events, I am sure that parts of our government have mastered manipulation. They've been doing it since a few days before they were in office. Manipulation is the ability to push at your pain point, to make you feel as though you are suffocating, you're going through a severe loss, i.e., to push your triggers to make you feel afraid. A lot of people right now are seriously afraid of how they're going to eat, how they're going to get the medications, how we're going to survive for the next 4 years. Real concerns based on a given situation. However, when we start to understand that even if there are people in higher named positions, we ultimately have control over our own lives, we start to become less afraid. I'm 55 years old. I remember Reaganomics. Doing Reaganomics, it kind of hit around the same time as the crack epidemic did in the United States. I don't know where else it was in the world, but I know when it hit in the U.S., where people went from freebasing to doing crack. Don't ask me how I know all the difference and all that. That's not relevant to the conversation. But I grew up in the 80s, and I remember being lacking, whereas we didn't have a lot, but we still didn't consider ourselves to be poor. We were in a situation, and we learned to adjust to our situation. Whereas I was going to school with people who were upper middle class to, the midi version of middle class. And everyone was in a panic. There's a guy who came to school one day and he's like, "Oh my God, my dad just lost his job. My mom had to go and apply for food stamps. I don't know what we're going to do. I am so embarrassed. We have to get free lunch." The funny part about that, free lunch and paid lunch were the same thing. As far as the menu, the only difference was now he had to go and get a lunch card. And instead of paying out of pocket, he had to present that little yellow card that indicated that he didn't have the money to pay. We presented our cards with pride because we got to eat. And it didn't matter whether we were paying or not, we consumed the same food. I say that to say we were all experiencing the same circumstances, but we came to the situation with different perspectives. He felt a drastic loss, whereas I was in my norm. And it affected me differently, what they referred to as Reaganomics, where a lot of people in the middle class were suffering and life was pushing at their pain points. And the children who were teenagers at the time didn't know how to handle what was going on in their home. And because this was a different experience for them and for their parents, there were a lot of divorces going on, a lot of arguing going on. Well, 40 years later, as time happens, we find ourselves with history and a possibility of it repeating itself. And if we are willing to learn from our past, a lot of us haven't been here before, then we understand if we change our perspectives, we change our situations. I don't know what's going to happen within the next hour, let alone within the next 4 years. One thing I do know for sure, having been on this journey, is that whatever happens, we have an obligation to use those resources that I call tools in our proverbial toolbox to analyze various situations. Analyze what is the worst thing that could happen if, let's just say, the extreme. If you have a federal job, if you work for DEI, and your job is eliminated, what is the worst thing that could happen? Because I've been laid off 3 times in my life because the grants ended, I feel as though I am qualified to say the worst thing that could happen if you lose your job is that you'll have to go on unemployment and you may have to reinvent yourself. I can honestly say, from having lost my job 3 times, that losing your job, though it may hurt and it hits all of those trigger points that initially have you afraid, once you settle into what has happened and understand there's absolutely nothing that you can do about losing that particular job, you have the opportunity to change your perspective. Use your resources to re-examine who you are. Find something that you may enjoy doing better than the thing that you were doing before. If you qualify, go get you some unemployment. Because as I always say, resources are a hand up, not a handout. And find something you enjoy doing with your life. Appreciate the time off. And understand that it's not the end of the world. Everything happens for a reason. And the reason is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to rebuild you. And as we're walking on this journey, we have to remember Psalms 91. As we are walking, not knowing what to expect on this journey we call life, there may be 1,000 that falls on this side and 10,000 that falls on the other side. But we're dependent on the angels to hold us up as we're walking blindly on the journey, not knowing where we're going, not knowing what stumbling blocks we're going to encounter in the road, but knowing one thing for sure, that we are being protected, and that the fire, the snares, and the fowlers may come right to our tent. But we have to have faith that as we're walking, they won't penetrate. We may feel the heat, but we won't get burned, because we're going to use our intuition and our discernment to carry us to the other side, not knowing what the other side is going to be, but using our gifts to get there. Our gifts being the ability to detect when danger is coming near, which is the purpose of fear. Fear is not supposed to have us held paralyzed. Fear is supposed to be a tool to say, that doesn't feel right. I'm not going over there. Because I went in my toolbox and something like that has happened to me before. I don't like that feeling. So I'm going to take this road that's going to have many forks. And any time that I feel like I'm getting that pit in my stomach and stuff isn't going right, I'm going to turn around. And then suddenly, we find the road, the one that was meant for us. The path where things start to feel like they're right. The path where things have gotten less complicated and we're walking with ease. And that's how we know we're on the right road. Are there still going to be minor bumps in the road? Of course. This is a life. We can organize our journey. We can plan our journey. Understanding that we're just actors in the play that we have limited control over. But with a lot of faith and a lot of resilience, resilience being the we fall down but we get up theory, and we're going to keep walking, we're going to make it through today. We're going to make it through tomorrow. And we're going to make it through the next day. One step at a time. This is Sharinda Pringle, the author of The Journey to Rediscovering Me. And if you're interested in a reading about how to make it through a traumatic event, you can read The Journey of Rediscovering Me. The link is in the description. And I promise you that it's an uplifting novel about how I made it over through various traumatic events in my life. If you don't want to read it, that's okay too. But I will show up to keep just letting you know that faith and resilience will carry you through. As always, if nobody else told you today, I love y'all. Until we meet again. Peace.